You don't know your own rule book. Your staff turnover is massive, and very often your staff don't understand the rule book either. Have you got the minutes for those meetings? In my experience of government, Mr. Pocklington, most things are minuted to the nth degree. So did your department not minute those meetings? You actually, I think, bully people using this wretched rule book, which has got more loose ends than a plate full of spaghetti. What data do you hold, basically, on the correlation between foreign nationals and medical malpractice taking place within the NHS? I'll take it you don't know that. Yes, James, I was listening to your introduction. You talked about missing data. What is the definition of missing data? And when you drill down and you see you've got 200 tax manuals totaling 80,000 pages, and the UK tax code is 22,000 pages in 2 volumes, it's hardly surprising. So how many illegal migrants have absconded or gone missing from Home Office accommodation in the past 5 years? I mean, do you know the answer to that?
There is this was something that was looked into by the ICIBI recently, and in due course that report will be published.
You know, this report on the face of it looks good, but I think we're looking at quite a soft target in big businesses. I think most of the tax you're not collecting is not coming from big businesses, it's coming from small businesses, and particularly businesses like Turkish barbers and vape shops that you're doing absolutely nothing about, because probably it's more difficult. And I think the cheap deliverables are much easier to deliver when you're looking at big businesses, where you've weaponized people's financial advisors against them, and they are effectively acting for you, not for the company.
So the timed, so the data for that period from that entity has not been submitted.
How can you claim to be improving productivity when police forces are being loaded with immigration tasks you don't measure, you don't report, and you can't quantify? You often come at me saying that something is, by your own admission, a grey area, but you're going to raise the tax anyway. And you use your larger covenant effectively. You have the taxpayer behind you, businesses don't. They actually have to make profits and pay taxes. And I think here, this is a very, very interesting chart. And even if you look at the light blue, that's error. Well, that's an error because your rule book's so complicated, in my opinion. So why can't you, on burden on businesses, why can't you simplify your own rule book? It's too complicated. With all this mess, now is not the time to have an uncertain situation. I think you were due to have this report out, was it in September? And you're hoping to have this structure out in January? It was January. I mean, when are we going to see it?
The white paper.
I've seen there's a white paper, but when are we actually going to have a firm structure so everybody knows what's happening? So you two are leading this still.
Yes.
One from marketing, and in my experience, marketing people should never be anywhere near systems implementation. I've had tax investigations in businesses where your staff have changed 3 times. And that means you have to then re-engage with your staff. That means they get loads more cost, loads more administrative burden. And, you know, I just don't think, I think you are doing a lot to damage British enterprise, and I think it could be made a lot simpler, and actually people could live their lives, because most people want to pay their tax, they want to be honest, they don't want to be dishonest, but your rule book is so complicated that half the time they try and do the right thing, but you might take a different view to this wretched homunculus of a book which isn't clear, which may work to your advantage, because you may well then be able to go and tax people more unfairly, but I think we've got to get to the bottom of this. It didn't take me very long to find out that many in Whitehall and the media call you the Queen of Woke. But it's driven, I think, by your championing of and proactive implementation of high-paying DEI roles within the civil service. So I had a quick look, and in 21-2, the police forces spent 15 million on DEI, and there were 147 DEI officers. Whether they're highly paid or lowly paid, I leave that to everybody to judge. In 23-4, there are 197. So the DEI virus is growing within the police force.
There are very safe systems for people to speak up, and they do not suffer any harm as a result of doing so through our freedom to speak up system.
Clearly these people don't agree. And I start to think this is arguably statist intervention rather than actually allowing individuals to travel east-west unfettered in a more effective way so they can pursue their own lives. So is the reason you've delayed this costing because you are embedding other, what I would describe as unacceptable additives into this plan? You must look at all this data. You can't fear being called racist or anything else. We need raw data for the taxpayer's benefit and also for the patient's benefit. So it does seem to be from top to bottom a mess. I read of procurement errors, I read of a lack of planning, I read of a lack of expertise. Of 407 local authorities that should have submitted audited information into the WGA, 167 or 41% didn't submit data at all. A further 55% or 224 submitted data based on unaudited accounts. Only 16 or 4% of English local authorities submitted adequate audited data. I've asked 610 questions of the Home Office since the election. Hundreds were data related. Of those, roughly 90% of the time, there was no data. And I ask these simple questions, I never get an answer. I mean, 610 questions, 90% with no data.
Okay,
Where is the data? Where is it? We've literally had hundreds of NHS staff whistleblowers, I mean hundreds, who've contacted us about the lack of English language causing issues, as well as foreign staff not holding appropriate skills and qualifications. I listened to this conversation and I have a concern that the skill and knowledge base, both within the civil service and within the ministerial pool, which I look at with horror, is not capable of actually holding the public's corner, splurge of taxpayers' money, which was easily avoidable. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. So are we going to make progress and sort this out, or are we going to be having this conversation when you next come before the committee? Surely we must drill down and we must find out why this is happening. As you probably know, I've set up something called Restore Britain.
We've got the message there.